probably shouldn't be sitting, lounging back, sleeping in this nice, comfortable couch. Welcome, junkies. We're so excited to come to you today with this awesome podcast. Today we interviewed Lea Anstine and Lea Leggitt about their article that they wrote in Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation's Bugle magazine from July-August 2021 called Plans Change. In this article that they wrote, it talked about a hunt that Lea went on a few years ago when she was about 20 years old. And she had some injuries from back in high school that were limiting her on her ability to get out there. And it was a really cool opportunity to listen to them talk about their hunt and the relationship that they have as a mother-daughter and what they do to keep themselves motivated out there. And I think you all will enjoy it for sure. I know I did, and Lance and I could have talked with them for quite a while today. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought it was awesome. Really inspirational. I just loved hearing the story. She's so young, and she's accomplished so much. And her mom,
very
Mia,
talented,
motivated. She's not only done a lot just in hunting, but in her schooling. She has her own business doing photography, particularly for going out to rodeos.
Yeah.
And then her mom, Mia, very impressed with her too. The way she raised Lea and knowing some of the right things to do was just real impressive. I think we'll hear that in the podcast. And so I think everyone's going to be inspired by this story.
Yep, I think it'll be a good one for sure. And it inspired me for sure. I know, sometimes you don't want to get your kids out there with you hunting, but it shows that if you do and persevere through it, you can still have a great opportunity and teach them some valuable skills in the process.
Take your kid out and they do something wrong. You're like, you blew it!
Yelling in their face. Don't do that. Your kids will run the other way, I promise.
That's one of the podcasts Dave and I have talked about doing here in the near future. We want to talk about the do's and don'ts if you want your kids to hunt with you. And so, Mia had a lot of great insight that I think we will want to share as well. So
for sure.
That'll be a fun podcast in the future.
Bring oatmeal cookies with those little cream in the middle. Those motivate your kids.
My daughter's all about chocolate almonds. As long as I got a handful of those.
Chocolate almonds.
That's right.
That works.
All right. We will jump right into it.
Cool.
Welcome, everyone. This is Lance Garner. I'm joined by Dave Morris. We've got a really awesome podcast for you today. We are joined by Lea Leggitt and Lea Anstine. Lea is an awesome hunter that we read about in the Bugle magazine. I was reading that a couple of weeks ago, and I was really inspired by her story. Mia is her mother, and she is a guide. And we've asked them to come on the show with us today to share that story that was in the Bugle magazine and anything else they'd like to share with us. So welcome, Lea and Mia.
Hi, thank you for having us. Thanks for having us on your show.
Oh, absolutely. I got to admit, I'm a little nervous because I think you're both writers. So I'm like, am I saying the right things?
I know when I started reading your story, I'm like, they're too eloquent for us. I don't know how to even come close to that.
So with that story, how much did you each write that? I mean, how does that kind of work when you do a story like that?
That was actually a first for Bugle magazine to have two writers going back and forth. And that was actually a first for both of us as well. We talked about writing it together. I had written my own separate version for another local article for our local Four Corners SCI chapter. And I used to work at Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, and they were looking for women's hunting stories. And so I thought, why don't we do this? And why don't we include two different aspects of my view versus my mom's view? And it was super fun to work on, actually. It seemed kind of difficult at first, but once we got it going, it just flowed really nice.
Yeah, I thought it was a great story. I really enjoyed kind of the back and forth, how, like you said, how it was written and each of your perspective, mom's perspective on you and raising you and so forth. I thought all that was great. So, well, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself first, Lea?
So I am a student right now. I'm for journalism and mass communications. I've been hunting since my mom took me when I was 2 years old on to grouse hunt with her. And then ever since then, I got hunter safety when I was 6 and shot my first turkey then. And from there, I kind of followed in her footsteps with journalism and started writing. And she does a lot of hunting review type writing, and I kind of started falling into the agricultural part of writing and pursued that farther.
Nice. Now, I think I've seen too, you've got your own website, right? That you do some photography?
Yes, I do photography as well. I do a lot of rodeo, agricultural type photography, and of course a little bit of portrait photography when I can, but
Yeah.
I definitely have a passion for capturing those moments.
Yeah, I went on your Instagram page and then went to the website, and you take some really awesome photos of the rodeo. Really catch the action of it. It's pretty cool.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, Mom, what about you? Tell us a little about yourself.
Well, I'm just the mom.
That's what all parents say, right?
Yeah, I guess we are like first and foremost a parents, but we've been in Southwest Colorado. Leah was born in Durango, so she's been here most of her life, other than when she went to college in Montana. But before she left to go to college, we guided almost full time on the national forest. And then when she went to college, we kind of scaled back, and my husband and I started doing more hunts on our own. But I kind of transitioned into writing when I met my husband when Leah was just, 6 or 7. And he needed a guide one day and asked if I would help. And I had never guided. I'd only hunted. So he said, it's okay. These hunters know what they're doing, and asked if I would just kind of go take them along and kind of watch over them. And so from there, I started guiding with him. And later, he and I got married. But I've been in the outdoor industry for, over a decade. And I've written for many publications and been featured in a lot of books and articles and stuff like that as well, just as a hunter who I really work to try to make a difference in the outdoor industry and kind of save hunting traditions, outdoor traditions, and advocate for firearms rights and stuff like that.
Oh,
That's
nice.
excellent.
Mia, I'm curious, what made you get Leah out hunting at such a young age? Because I think, as Leah had mentioned, 2 years old, you were taking her out there hunting. By 6 years old, she's, hunting turkeys. I mean, what made you kind of want to get her involved into hunting?
I always included Leah in everything I did. And it was kind of like friends would invite me over for parties and stuff like that. And if they said no kids were allowed, then I would just skip it. And so just taking her along out on a hunting trip was no different. That's the best way to teach a kid to behave in the outdoors, or even you take a kid to a restaurant. That's how they learn to behave at a restaurant. You always know which kids haven't been,
Oh, yeah.
been out and out by the way they behave.
The ones jumping on the table?
Yeah. So I always just took her along, and maybe sometimes she would spoil a hunt, but also it was always a learning opportunity, and for me and for her. So that was my goal, was to teach her. And we had a ton of fun, picking up rocks or leaves or looking at scat and tracks and stuff like that. And she probably knew more about that than a lot of adults by the time she was 6 years old when she took hunter education. So I actually teach hunter ed now, and it's amazing how you can see which youngsters have been included and which ones haven't. Like, some of them come from hunting families, and they might be 9 or 10 years old, but they don't know anything. And so their families might hunt, but they haven't been included. So it's a lot more difficult for them to understand things. So we might think things are common sense because we've been around it a lot. Whereas if you don't take kids out, they just don't know. It's not common sense. So.
Yeah.
Well, you had mentioned in that story, I had highlighted a quote, I guess a quote or comment you had made. You said, "I've included Leah whenever critical thinking and decision making are needed." And I think what's funny is I think a lot of parents are the opposite. When there's those critical thinking, maybe those more serious moments or whatever, we have a tendency to leave our kids out of it. And it sounds like you've done a great job of including Leah in those kinds of activities, and that's smart, right? It's hard, but it's really smart to do.
Yeah. And especially I think for some people during hunting season, if it's my hunt and if it's a 5-day season or a 9-day season, I can take her and ask her, like, do you want to go this way or that way? Or what do you think we should do? And maybe I will end up filling my tag or maybe not. But always it's just the learning opportunity and the experience for her is more important than whether you notch your tag or not.
Nice. Well, that's great to hear. Well, Lea, let's hear a little bit more about this story. And I'd like you to start kind of going back to,
Your
the injury. Yeah.
The big injury.
Yeah.
So,
Because I'm a fellow back person that has a bad back. I've already had surgery once, and so I really keyed in on that. And I was like,
yeah.
oh my gosh, I can't believe she
You were-
had 4 bulge discs and I only had 1. I mean, that's incredible.
Yes. Yeah, it definitely was quite the experience. I played basketball until my junior year, I believe, in high school, and got a knee injury and a back injury kind of the same time, as well as riding horses. I was bucked off and landed flat on my back. And with the combination of that hard impact, I didn't realize until about a year or 2 years after that I ended up having that back issue with 4 bulged discs. When I was at school, I was having to travel from Montana to Colorado once a month. I was doing injections in my back, nerve ablations to try to help with the pain. It wasn't working. And finally, one day while I was at school, I had just happened to bend down, move wrong, and my disc fully slipped, and I lost feeling from the waist down. It was super terrifying. I lived by myself at the time, and I just remember crawling to the couch and crying because I was like, it's almost hunting season. This happened in, I believe it was September or October. Yeah.
October.
And so I was super bummed. I had a tag in Montana to go hunt, and I ended up going to the doctor in Montana, and they gave me some pain medication, and I called home and they picked me up about a day later. And I came home and had the long road of recovery ahead. The doctor told me whatever I can do to be comfortable. It's something that I will have to have back surgery on at some point, but I did chiropractor, massage, acupuncture. They had me on a steroid for 14 days, I believe, and that helped it a lot. It's still, I still have it. I deal with it every single day, but luckily I haven't had the issue of my legs going numb since then. So
Yeah.
I'm thankful for that. Once I regained feeling and strength a little more in my legs, I did physical therapy for that. That's when I got that elk tag, and I was determined that I had the feeling of, what if I didn't have my legs? I would want this hunt to mark that and show that I can do it before I can't do it. That was how I kind of looked at everything since then, was, well, I'm going to do it while I still can. So that's kind of what led me on to really push hard to fill that archery elk tag.
It was funny in the article, before you actually kind of the back went numb, but you'd had all the back problems, right, in college. I think you called them inconveniences. And I thought those sound a lot more than just inconveniences, but I think that shows a lot of your character and your strength, that you would persevere through all that pain and still go off to college and go after your love for your degree and everything like that in journalism. So that's cool.
Yeah, definitely was one where I couldn't sit through lectures. I had to sit in the back to where I would stand up and sit down and have a place to pace around, kind of thing. If it was a long lecture, I'd have to tell teachers that either I couldn't stay the whole time or I'd have to have that outlet of being able to walk in and out. So I managed.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah, that's tough. Mia, you had mentioned another thing that I just really stood out to me is in the article. the doctor apparently had mentioned that, if you were to possibly have another fall, you could be paralyzed. And, that's pretty scary. But I found one thing really interesting that you said to me. You said we made sure the doctors understood that she needed the outdoors for healing. What made you, I guess, think that? I mean, is being in the outdoors that important? I mean, just kind of help us understand that a little better.
Well, part of it, I mean, the outdoors is very therapeutic to anybody, regardless of whether you have an injury or not. But Lea had her knee taken out in a basketball game. And that's why we thought was her knee was bad. And that was what was making her back hurt, was her knee. And with that, it was like she kind of recovered from the knee injury, went off to college, but then she was in the dorm. In the dorm, and then she got her apartment. She was in her apartment, and she was kind of stuck there. And it's like in hard chairs at her desk in her dorm, and then in her apartment, and then in hard chairs in the classroom, stuff like that. And it was like she needed to get outside and get out and about. And one of the best exercises for your back is strengthening your abdominal muscles. But part of that is the best exercise is walking. And part of walking is hiking. And with hiking, you have the added balance, which strengthens all of your muscles. So she really needed that. And we actually transitioned from one doctor, and then we made them let us go to another doctor, because the first doctor was basically trying to numb all her pain. She said the injections and the ablations and stuff like that, he's doing all this stuff to make the pain go away, but wasn't fixing the problem. And so we went to another doctor, and we told him, she's at the time, what were you, 20, 19 or 20, I think, I don't know. Jeez. But at that age, it's like she didn't need to be having a surgery yet. Right. She's young, she can still do things. And we basically told him, if this was your daughter, what would you do? And he said, I would do everything possible out there, and not surgery, but he was the one we needed to go to. And he's the one he suggested, do yoga, be careful with the stretches so you don't further protrude those discs, and do the chiropractic. And we did all these things, and it has been helping. She is pretty careful. I mean, just little things like riding in our UTV vehicle, the vibration of that can make the discs inflame. Yep. So, there's a lot of things that she does still have to be careful about. She rides horses a lot. And that we have to go for shorter trips. As a guy, we've taken people with MS. We've taken different people who can't use their legs. And so we do have this experience, and we don't want to have to be there yet with her, and hopefully won't ever have to be there with her. But it is something that back injuries you'll deal with for the rest of your life. So it's a matter of, like, right now, keeping her healthy and not letting her degenerate is partly why you have to get outside.
Yeah, well, that's great. Yeah, because I think most parents, probably including myself, if my child was injured, I'd be like, okay, well, don't go do anything, right? Just sit there. It's so easy to say that.
And that's exactly the opposite of what people need to do to heal. I mean, nutrition is a big thing. You have to eat well, and you have to be active. Yeah. The minute you stop moving is when your body starts degenerating. So, and I sound like so confident, and I know it was in October when that happened, because I was actually 14 hours south of home. I was in Texas teaching at She Never Quit. I teach archery there. And I got the phone call at, 6 o'clock in the evening, just before dinner. And to hear your daughter like crying hysterically, and she's up in Missoula, Montana, and I'm down in Texas. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to be there immediately. And it was like, do I leave all my archery gear and my targets here in Texas and hop on a plane and fly? And what do I do? And so, there was definitely panic there, and a lot of assessing the situation and stuff like that. And fortunately, she had a friend that was studying PT, I don't know, something like that came and helped her get to the emergency room. And within 24 hours, we were there to pick her up. So
that's impressive.
Yeah, because I think the outdoors are just awesome for mental, for us mentally, right? To help us heal that way too. So I don't know what I'd do if I didn't have the outdoors to go into. So So Leah, so after, you've gone to the doctors, you've had your back assessed and everything else, you had stated the goal that really carried me through it all, though, was to get my legs working again, my bow back in my hand, and finally kill a bull elk. So now you're focused, right? So you've got this goal now to go after a bull elk after all you've experienced, right?
Yeah, so that kind of was a big push for me just because I did need the outdoors and I wasn't going to let them tell me no. They're like, stay inside, relax, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, like I said, I was going to do it while I still could. I mean, I could fall tomorrow and possibly lose that feeling in my legs forever. So I was like, no matter what, I'm doing this hunt. I'm going to make it work around my school. And so that's exactly what I did. We had scouted a little bit, found places where we could hunt easily, where it wouldn't be super strenuous hiking or anything like that. I wasn't fully able to do anything like that. So it was an easy area, and it really all just fell into place. I hunted mornings before school. I hunted evenings when I had classes done in the afternoon, and I hunted weekends. I think we hunted for 2.5 weeks. The archery season here is a month long. So
how far are you traveling each time? So you said morning and evenings after school. How far do you got to travel each time you're going out to hunt?
How far was
it? It varied depending on, we tried a few different areas and then finally settled in one that we knew we could get her in and out in the morning. And so a couple miles in and back, and so that she could get there and then back so she could go to class, stuff like that.
That's impressive, actually.
That is impressive. I mean, that's what I was thinking. I mean, for 2.5 weeks going morning and night, I mean, that wears on you for anyone. So that shows your commitment to wanting this elk.
Well, and she kind of learned to do that even in where we live, and she went to school when she was in middle school. You would have an excused absence for hunting season. The principal is all about hunting.
What?
That's
man, I need to move to Durango.
I'm moving to Durango.
You miss learning. So we would try to, she had a buck tag, her first buck that she got. We would take her and hunt in the morning and then make breakfast burritos, and she'd be eating her breakfast burrito after the morning hunt on her way to class. So I think, did you hunt the morning that you got your buck? I mean, did you go to school after you got your buck that year? Or was that on the weekend?
No, I think it was the last day. So it was Sunday. It
was on a Sunday that she actually got it. Yeah. But it was one of those things, like, I know the days that I missed math class, those are the things that I still struggle with that I missed. So
Sure.
It's like, yeah, it's excused, but it's better if you get to school. So.
Yeah.
With that elk hunt, the herd that we'd been watching, they were in this bowl all the time. They were kind of traveling in and out, but not a lot. They were staying around, and there was one huge bull. I mean, huge to me is, he was
about a 310, 6x6. He was very nice.
Nice bull,
really
bull.
That beautiful deep gray color, and I was like, of course I want that bull. Like, I'm gonna hunt that bull. And there's a lot of stories within this bugle story that didn't get shared. One, I was 40 yards away. It was the morning before I had to go to class. We had snuck out there, and we were on top of this little ridge, and there were trees they were kind of starting to filter through. And I'm on the edge waiting for this bull, like, hopefully he comes out. And here come the cows. They're kind of calling to each other. And then here comes the bull up the trail that's about 40 yards away from me. And it was just before good shooting light for me, what I would prefer. And he comes around, and of course I'm, oh my gosh, like shaking, like this bull is so close. And a cow walks right in front of him and kind of trails him side by side the whole way up this trail. And I was only behind a little sagebrush. I wasn't covered. So as soon as they even looked, I was blown, and was like, don't move. Maybe the cow will move. And the cow barks at me, and the bull goes straight down and the cow goes away. And I didn't ever have a shot on that bull. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I was so close. And I was like, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And it never did. And that was super awesome to get that experience after hunting
and
for about a week.
They're bugling and calling the whole time, which if you've been around bugling bulls, like that's part of the excitement is hearing that person up close.
Oh yeah. So how did you feel after they had run off? I mean, obviously I assume you're a little bit disappointed, but were you kind of like down? I mean, how did that make you feel afterwards?
I was a little bit upset. I think it was one that there could have been a shot opportunity, but looking back at it, I wasn't comfortable with the light. I wasn't comfortable with, there were cows behind him. There was that one kind of covering him a little bit. It would have been a tight shot. And so I was proud of myself for noticing that and going through it and evaluating my shot before I tried to take it.
Yeah.
So I was bummed, but also was like, that was such an amazing opportunity because not everyone that hunts elk gets that close to that nice of a bull and really get to like fully experience it. Like not just like, oh, I shot because he was there. It was more of like being in the moment there with them while they're doing their thing is amazing.
Yeah, that shows.
And I think that's part of where that decision making that I included her in when she was younger, she's always impressed me at her ability to pass up on an animal. That's not something that I've always been good at. I mean, I've always hunted for meat and it's like, okay, there's a legal bull and I want to put meat in the freezer. So I'm going to take the shot on the bull, and not necessarily if there's other animals in the way, but before this bull, there were other seasons where Lea passed on, okay, I don't want that one. And she'd pass. And then the season would end too quick, during gun season and stuff like that. And she's always been a phenomenal archer. And I think that's why her goal was always an archery bull. The rifle ones, she was never pulled the trigger with her rifle. She would pass. But with her bow, she was focused and dedicated, and she had shot pronghorn, and had you shot deer with your bow also? But she had killed big game with her bow, but with the bull, she was just like focused and driven and still able to make those good decisions while she was out there.
Yeah, I think that speaks to your maturity level, because any one of us, I don't care how old you are, any hunter has that moment where they're thinking, should I just do it? Even though it's not the best shot, right? It might be quartering to you or whatever it may be. You just have that thinking of, I really want this bull. I really want to shoot. And so that really speaks to your maturity and your ethics too. So that's great.
Yes. But after that whole experience, I had hunted that bull probably another week and nothing was panning out. He had his large herd of cows, and so it was super hard to get within range. I was blown so many times, and finally I was, like you said, that wore on me just that many days, and I finally decided that I was just going to go for a satellite bull, whatever we could call in, something that I could get in range. There was one really cool bull that I was my second choice, and he was a perfect 5 on one side, and his other side went straight out and up and was like a palmation on the end with like 2 points. It was like, that's super cool.
Oh yeah,
like,
that's cool.
I did that too. So
yeah,
I had ended up the final morning, wasn't the final of the season, but that morning I was like, forget that big bull. Let's just try to hunt one of these other bulls. And I saw him and I was like, okay, my dad stayed on the top of this ridge and my mom followed down with the decoy. And so I had kind of crept out into the edge of this big meadow. They were kind of filtering up to go into the trees. And I was right at this tree and they were on either side and they were all bugling, calling. It was crazy. And I was on one side thinking maybe that bull will come this way. Then all of a sudden there's bugling right behind me. And so I'm like, okay, spin around, don't spook any bulls, go to the other side of this tree. And I hear this bull bugle. Well, there's another 2 spikes coming from where I was just looking. and they walk right by this tree, no more than 5 yards. Didn't wind was perfect. They walk right by, keep going up. Of course, I'm just like, I'm a tree. And so they go by, and then all of a sudden, all I see are antlers coming over this little mound. And I'm like, okay, there's 2. Okay, there's 3. Okay, there's 5. And I'm like, this is a legal bull. Like, if he comes into range, I'm going to shoot this bull. And it wasn't the cool freak one. It was just a regular 5x5 bull. My mom is kind of back here behind me, and I'm kind of looking at her, seeing what this bull spots the decoy and comes trotting in straight to her. So I'm immediately thinking, how am I going to shoot this bull if it tries to attack my mom or something?
So Mia, could you see Lea the whole time?
Yeah, I could see the bull coming in from behind her and everything. Like, I could see the whole thing. And I'm back behind the decoy, and I had cow called till the 2 spikes came. And then I'm like, okay, I don't want them, coming from behind me, because at that point they were behind me, not behind her. But I could see the other one coming across from the other side. And so I'm like up there behind the decoy thinking, turn around. And so I could see him the whole way.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool to see the whole situation like pan out and come to fruition.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and we were just far enough away too where there wasn't any way to be like whispering or like turn or anything.
Mm-hmm. I was probably 40 or 50 yards from her. So
so we were just far enough to where we couldn't really talk. And once I looked at her, she was pointing like, turn, there's a bull over here. And he comes down the road, not road, it was like a little game trail road. Is that what
not a road?
Sure.
Game road.
But
some are wide enough they look like they're roads, some of those animals use.
But he ends up coming down, and there's this little tree not in the way, but kind of in between him and I. So he didn't see me right away. And he comes past it, and I'm like, okay, like this is within range. I know my ranges. I've practiced kind of instinctual ranges. And he kind of either winded us, saw me move a little bit, and he spun around and stopped right behind that tree. And when I archery hunted my antelope, I couldn't draw my bow when I had one in range. Like, I was so nervous, and this one was like butter. I drew right when he was behind that tree because I knew he was going to take that step out. Drew like butter, and I was like, wow. Like, I was impressed I even drew my bow back with my heart beating.
All that adrenaline, yeah.
Yeah, and sure enough, he takes the 2 steps out, and I think my mom called. I was obviously in the zone of not even, I was like, I'm going to shoot this bull. And he was just a touch quartering away, and I shot. And I was like, and he takes off running, and I immediately think I missed. I didn't see it. Like, it sounded like I hit him, but I also was like, oh my gosh, what happened? Oh my gosh, I just shot this bull. And he goes right over the hill. He came past, and my heart's beating out of my chest, and I immediately knocked another arrow. Like, if he stops at the top, or if he circles around, I'll see him and try to shoot him again. And of course, I looked at my mom like, did you just see that? Like, just shot this bull. And all the wild bulls are still bugling, and all this, like, nothing even happened. They were just doing their thing still. So I waited a minute, and then slowly snuck out back to my mom and was like, did you see where it hit? What? We talked about it, and we're like, we'll just wait it out, hang out. Like, I hit him. So we waited a while, probably 15 minutes, 20 minutes.
It was like a half an hour.
It felt like 10 seconds.
Felt like eternity. Probably felt like eternity to you.
And we finally look around. I'm like, I don't see blood. I don't see an arrow.
She was panicked. And I saw her shoot, and I saw the arrow hit, but she, me reassuring her wasn't really helping.
Finally, we find just the end of my arrow, about like 8 inches of it. And I was like, oh, so I hit something because there's only the end of my arrow. And we walk a little farther over, and this was the biggest pool of blood I've ever seen hunting. It was like 3 feet wide, just this huge pool of blood. And I was like, well, I hit him. And so we're like, I guess we'll follow this blood trail. And so we kind of follow it around, and we go probably what?
I don't know. It was like 30 yards.
Yeah.
Like, as much blood as he lost. She was still panicked, and it was like, no, he's going to be like laying right here. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Yeah. He just made his way right up into the trees, not very far at all. And he was laying there, and I was just like, no way. Like, that did not just happen. Like, I was so worried that I missed him or made a bad shot or anything. And it was pretty cool to like be like, oh my gosh, there's a bull right there. Like, that's the bull. And it was so amazing. But to me, the craziest part of this whole thing is we get to him, start working on him to pack him out. And the big herd of elk that had walked up into the trees, they had ended up circling around. And while we're sitting on this elk talking how we are right now, just being like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Did you see this or that? And all of a sudden,
we're still dressing him.
Yeah, and we're doing our thing. And all of a sudden, here comes cows. And we're probably like 20 yards from their game trail. And cows come by, and they're kind of mewing. And all of a sudden, here comes this bull.
And you hear a bugle.
And this bull starts coming up, and he mounts a cow right in front of us. And we're like, what? Come on.
Like, don't you see we have a dead bull right here?
And they saw us and looked right at us and just kind of kept going. Then the big bull that I'd been hunting for that whole season walks right up that trail, looks at us, bugles, makes your hair stand up like, oh my gosh, like just like echoes through your whole body. And it's like, how amazing is this? Like, we're so close to this bull and could have had a shot if we didn't already shoot this bull. And it was just so amazing to like him bugle at us. And then they just keep going along. Like, they didn't even run at all. They just saw us and kept going. And we're like, wow, how crazy is this?
That was the big bull's way of saying, nice job, girl.
Yeah.
You took my competition out.
Yeah.
That's so incredible. Now, was it from the picture, looked like a 5x5, but it had like a devil point on the front from what I could see?
Yeah. Yeah, he had a little tiny extra point on
and
that
it's a
front.
scoreable point.
So
really,
it's 5x6 or?
Yeah.
Hey, count them. That's what I said.
I thought that little devil point was cool. He was a nice bull. So I'm really curious about, Mia, you used a decoy. Have you, as a guide, do you use decoys very often?
We always talk about this side of the hill and that side of the hill and this side of the hill and talking about the mountains and the Continental Divide. This side, the decoys don't really work. In 2018, I drew a limited draw tag in another unit on the other side of the hill. And there were so many elk there because it's limited that we ended up learning. It was just my husband and I, and we hunted, I think 18 days up there, but we learned that the decoys worked up there. And so with Leah, it was like, what can we do to help her? And we were like, we may as well try the decoy, because she would go some days with my husband and some days she'd just come with me. And we were like, what can we do to help? And the decoy, as they're supposed to, it's a distraction. And with her hunt, it definitely worked. Yeah. And we just used the Rocky Mountain elk, the cow decoy, and it definitely was a good distraction.
Yeah.
Was it like the full side body one or just from the one from behind?
It was the full side body one.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Those are
And
nice.
when we were hunting in the other unit, like I said, we used the rump and we used the full body. And on that, with just having two of us, I mean, when you have a caller, and that's where, like, if your decoy is stationary and you're just calling from the decoy, you're not moving around. And so it's nice to have another caller that can move around, but also if you can move the decoy, they're not as fixated on it. Whereas if your decoy is just standing still being a fake thing, they eventually figure out that it's fake. So
makes sense.
There's a whole technique using them.
Well, as you describe this whole experience, Leah, it really speaks to your, like I'd mentioned, your maturity, but your knowledge of hunting. A lot of the ways you describe things, of knowing to draw back when the bull was behind the bush and things like that. It really speaks to your knowledge at such a young age. So were you 20? How old were you when you actually got that bull?
Yeah, I was 20 when I got it.
Yeah.
And you talk about me being a guide. Leah actually is a better guide than I am. And so we used to have competitions about which guide is most successful in which years. And so my husband and me and Leah, we'd always have these contests, like who had the most successful hunts. And Leah usually won that. Maybe
Nice.
She's lucky, but she's also a good guide.
That's nice. So is it like a personal company that you guys have for your guiding service, or do you guide for somebody else, or?
So we have Wolf Creek Outfitters, which is our business, but now, like I said, after she went away to college, we really scaled back. And so now I guide for private landowners, and we do special needs hunts and youth turkey hunts and stuff like that. So we don't guide as much as we used to, but back when we were guiding, she definitely she came in handy quite often.
That's nice.
Well, I definitely can say you really committed yourself. You went all in. Mia, you'd mentioned in the article about the importance of being all in. I actually, 2 years ago, I had a Benchmade knife that I bought and had written on it, be all in, because I think it's so important. I found myself a lot of times when I was hunting that I was 75% there. I really wasn't dedicating myself and putting myself really in the moment and doing whatever I needed to. And as you'd mentioned in there, that being all in really helps create those opportunities. And I think is so important to being successful. And obviously, Leah was definitely all in on this one.
And being all in, a lot of people, oh, well, I work, I do this. You can be all in, as she has just said with her school, like in between, like focus that time, that your free time to the hunts. And a lot of people, when we were guiding, they'll come for their hunting season. Oh, well, I'm going to leave 2 days early because I want to go watch a football game, or, I have this season, but I'm tired, so I'm just going to leave. And it's like, well, you're tired. Go take a nap, go take a break, but then come back and hunt. Or before the hunt, train and get fit and get in shape to go.
Yeah.
Which, even her with her injured back and, her muscles can be weakened too when she gets tired just from those nerves, but she's still, you have to find that balance while you're all in.
Yeah.
Nice. So how is your back today?
It's good.
She banged her knee earlier today.
Yeah, I hit my knee on the metal corner, and so it hurts to walk right now, but it's not my back. My back is really good. I ride a lot, like I had said in the beginning. I can't go as long on our backcountry packing trips type thing. Usually around like 2 hours of horseback riding, I'm pretty done in. Hiking, it can vary. If I do a lot of walking at trade shows or anything like that, a lot of walking is really hard on me. But the most important thing is staying in shape, like we had mentioned. When I know when I haven't done the exercises or done stretching or anything like that, if I slack off on that, it shows. I notice it way more. I'm way more sore the next day. And so that's one thing that really helps me through all my issues, is just being able to keep that strength. But all of that helps keep my back in good shape and keeps me strong and make sure I can keep going.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really impressed, and I'd be lying if I didn't say I got a little goosebumps as you've been telling this story, everything you've persevered through. And I'm a fan. I really am. I'm excited to follow you on Instagram and see, because as I was on there, you hunt a lot of other animals, pheasant. Was it a cougar? I think I saw you had gotten as well.
Yeah, my first mountain lion I got in January. That was also my first pheasant hunt ever. Did that in October last year. A lot of walking, but it was a lot of fun, and I definitely recommend people to get out of their comfort zones and try something new. That was new for me. I love shotgun. I'm a shotgun instructor, but and down here in Southwest Colorado, we don't have upland birds. So when I got the opportunity to go, I jumped on it, and I'm going again this year. So
Smart.
Well, I'm impressed. You're 23 now, right? So
you've done more than most people have in their entire lives, which is
very
impressive.
I'm impressed.
So have you turkey hunted since you were 6 years old?
Oh man, I honestly got burnt out on turkey hunting.
Also, now, she didn't tell you the day that she encountered that bull and the cow blocked the bull, and she was frustrated that day, but it was turkey season up here. It was fall turkey season. And so we were like, hey, let's distract her. And that's the thing, is it's all about like, enjoy your hunt, and you know, let's distract her. There's a tom gobbling also the whole time that when the bulls would bugle, there's a tom gobbling. And so we're like, hey, and she can literally run down turkeys. And that's why she says she burns out on turkey hunting, but she likes fall turkey hunting. So we're like, hey, let's have her go around on the other side of over the hill and see if she can find this turkey. And she stalked him, and she got close, and she actually got to full draw on him, but never got a good shot because of the oak brush and stuff. But so she does still turkey hunt. But she's not as focused as we probably were when she was a youngster.
Yeah.
She doesn't like sitting out in the cold and stuff like that, which is probably why she likes archery season for elk too.
It's a little warmer. Yeah.
Turkey hunting is a lot of fun here in Utah. You can get 3 tags in the fall, so you can get a spring tag, and then you can get up to 3 fall tags, and it's a lot of fun as long as you can find them. A lot of times they're on private property in the fall, but Dave and I like we like to hunt them, and they're a blast. They don't make my heart pound like an elk does, obviously, but.
And I always tell everybody, like, what else can you call and have come into your calls? Because you can't hunt elk in the springtime, so you may as well hunt a strutting, gobbling tom.
That's right.
That is so true. You know, you made comment. I mentioned that I had back surgery. I don't know, what has it been? 6 years ago, 5-6 years ago. And you know, I came to that same point. Probably 2.5 years after my surgery. I was just taking it easy. I didn't want to do anything. I was just worried, and then. One day, you know, Lance was like, hey, you need to try some archery shooting. And I was like, okay, I am going to forget the whole back thing and just go do something. Because I was like, if I'm going to, like you said, if I'm going to be stuck doing this the rest of my life, I want to do something what I want to do. And so that's what, at that point, I just switched it and was like, nope, it's time to go do what I want to do and not let this rule my life. And I think you've done an excellent job at that. Obviously, it's something that I think about all the time. I mean, I threw out my back bending over to pick up a piece of paper like 6 months after I had the surgery, and I'm like, no, this is not going to happen, you know. And I've had some little hiccups here or there, but for the most part, it's that attitude of I'm not going to let this ruin my life. And it's not going to rule me, and I think you've done an excellent job of that. And it's so impressive as a parent, you know, Mia, that you've encouraged your daughter to persevere through this. I mean, it's a challenge. It's like you said, it's going to be something you deal with the rest of your life. And you know, the attitude that you have about it is the key component. And I think you both have excellent attitudes, and I could see it in your face. I wish people could see it. You guys are just smiling all the time and joking with each other. It tells me what kind of relationship that you both have, and as a mother, and probably your best friends. And I can honestly tell that between the two of you. So it's been great to talk with you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I think we'll wrap this one up.
Yep. Thanks, guys. It's
All right.
been
Thanks for
excellent.
having us.
You
Yeah,
bet.
thank you. All right. We'll see you, everyone.